great introduction from John again this morning, and I did notice that when you were asked the question how many have experience of or use likelihood ratio or don't use likelihood ratios, a large number of hands went up. So I thought I'd start with one that's straightforward, and just wish me luck with this. Okay. I'm from a laboratory area where under these circumstances we would actually take the information that this is the inside front of underpants, and knowing the wearer's profile is significant in these particular cases. And of course with likelihood ratio we actually have to set our hypotheses. So in this particular instance I'm going to have HP, prosecution hypothesis, equals, I know it's perhaps not PC, but can I use S for suspect because it's easier to write than POI? Okay. Suspect, or in fact, wearer in this instance, plus victim, and we're looking for the female in this instance. Everybody happy with that? Divided by HD equals suspect plus unknown. Everybody okay with that one? So, under HP, what do I expect to see? Exactly the profile I've got. Probability of 1. Okay. Suspect is my 1418, and therefore that just leaves my unknown, which is going to be 2 times the frequency of 16, frequency 17. Everybody okay with that? Anybody dissent from that? Anybody want to come and do this instead? Okay. Can I? Right, okay. Now the interesting thing with the likelihood ratio approach is that the fewer alleles you have, the more complex it gets. So in this instance, we did an assessment. We have 3 alleles at the locus. We have 2 very large alleles and 1 which is close to 1,000. Do we think there's any possibility of there being a 4th sister allele in our 2-person mixture? And we discussed that right at the beginning. We said no. Okay. So in this instance, again, I've got to set my parameters. I'll use wearer plus victim, and HD is wearer plus unknown. Yeah, okay. Probability of the HP, we're still 1. Everybody okay with that one? Now, what have we got? What options do we have for HD? We've got to account for the 15, yes? Everybody happy with account for the 15? What do we pair the 15 with within that set of data that's allowable? Would you give me 1215? Or plus 1415? Or 1515? I must squeeze this one in. 1515 on the end there. Okay. And of course, because we've got those, we've got 2's in there and 2's in there. So, how do I rub this out, Mike? How do I rub this out?
Erase. Push that now. It's erasable.
Front end. Okay. That one. Okay. So, what we've got is 2 F12 F15 plus 2 F14 F15 plus F15 squared. Everybody okay with that? We have lots more data in there. We have to take account of all of those combinations. Yeah? Okay. Get rid of this?
Yeah.
Did we do a third one?
Yes. Do you want to do it?
Well, you want me to? I'll go that.
Which one?
is the, what's that? Between one. Okay, this is really, really best of luck, Chris. The fewer the alleles we've got, the less information we've got, and the more difficult these become. And I've got my notes here because I'm going to need them. Have we got everybody represented in this 2 allele profile? Yes, no? Yes, we have. Okay, so we're all happy that everything that can be accounted for is in that 2930. In this instance, there's 2 ways we can approach it. We can write out all of the potential allele pairs that we could have, and I think Todd did that, and we end up with potentially, there's only 2 allowable, if I've got this right. I won't write them all out, but we ended up with either go back. And it's that one. Yes. 29, 30, and 29, 29. And the second one was 29, 30, and 29, 30. I think that was what Todd has just been through. And you can work through, you think there's a 30-30 as well? 29, 30, 30, 30. Would that work on your peak balance? I guess it might. Not sure. Not peak balance, with the mixture ratio. Is that one allowable? Yeah.
I think it was the top one, 2930 and 2929 that didn't.
Okay. Query. But we've got potential in there to have, again, variable combinations. But I wanted to go through, well, for my benefit more than anything else, is I've been fascinated by John's approach, and I tackled this one and challenged him with it this morning. And do you want to go through it, John, or shall I have a go? Okay. So, what have I got on the top line? Potential 29-29. Potential 29-30. And a 30-30. Curly brackets. And on the bottom, I've got to account for all of these. So I can either have 3 29s and a 30, or 2 29s and 2 30s, or a 29 and 3 30s. And then we've got to put the numbers in on top of that. So we'd have the factorials. Get this right. I don't know if I can do it on this screen. That's going to be 2 fac over 2 29s is 2 fac, and that's going to be 2 fac over 1 fac. That's 2. Hey, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to try being too adventurous here. No, I'm being too adventurous. John, would you? Because if I can't explain it properly, then I'm going to confuse you, and I'm going to confuse me. Thanks, mate.
It is with deep
While
trepidation.
John is setting up, could I just ask something to unconfuse myself? We seem to have changed the premises of the example in doing this calculation because the homework problem told us that the person of interest was the person who turns out to be the major profile in this mixture. And we're calculating statistics for inclusion of someone whose standard were not given in the minor profile. So under the premises of the problem is set, we wouldn't be doing this calculation, it seems to me, because we were not given a victim, quote unquote, standard. We were in fact told that what turns out to be probably the wearer of the pants was the person of interest. So that was just confusing me a bit, so I thought I'd point that out.
Okay, I've failed in my very primary task of actually even making a mark.
Yeah.
I've been caught sitting down the back reading a paper, and I am not as up with where we've got to here, but I think if I actually was just rereading a thing I'd written on micro-probabilities, presenting micro-probabilities in court, and I just got down to the section I was quoting from Steve Le Bon, actually. So it's an amazing coincidence. But if I understand it, the major in this profile appears to match the person of interest. Is that correct? Right. Now, I don't want to break the tempo of what's been done because we're here in a mixtures workshop, but if I was confident the major was 2930 and the person of interest was 2930, I would simply report a likelihood ratio for the major. I'm just going to write that maths out in a minute, but it's going to be trivial. And then I might make the problem different so that we can actually make it a challenge. So I'd actually go I think I usually spell his name wrongly. Okay, and I usually use RM as a little code for random man. So if we did that, then what is the chance of getting a profile like this if the major is from Dr. Le Bon and he is indeed a 2930? Well, it's 1. What's the probability of this if it's from a random man? Well, we know the random man has to be the 2930, so that's just 2 F of 29, F of 30. And the bottom line is that if you have a very clean major, you can actually just take that out. And if you have a very clean major and that's the person of interest, it just comes out as a single source and we've got no issues. So I think that one's too trivial for the class. Is that right? And it looks like everyone else has been treating this problem slightly differently.
Suspect was victim, John.
So which one's the victim?
Exactly.
Okay, so I might turn the... I have to make the problem harder somehow.
Well, I think part of the issue was, when we were discussing this last night, we were treating this as an indistinguishable mixture.
Sure, and it's 4 to 1, I think, ish, isn't it? And it's easily distinguishable. So what am I going to do now, right?
We actually did distinguish it because it's less than 4 to 1. But, yeah.
Well, can I maybe sit down and get up when you have a harder one, or shall I try and make this one harder? I mean, the way to make the... Sorry?
How about let's say that you said the major is the victim
Yeah.
and the minor is the
Yeah.
suspect.
So major minors become more challenging when it's the minor that's the person of interest. So should we do it that way round?
Yeah.
Okay, now I have to learn how to erase. I swear to you that we are vaguely technically competent in New Zealand. Although there is really clear evidence to the contrary at the moment. So we're going to now have the victim equals 2930. 30, and the person of interest, and well, look, we'll make it look really nice and tidy. Okay, so this looks really beautiful. And I would normally punish a student if they didn't do this bit first. Okay.
We got that far.
Please don't let me start to become the authority in these things. I'm not up for that. Okay, now I think from the rest of the profile, we're able to be reasonably confident the minor would have been visualised at this locus, right? I think the peaks at the next locus over are quite big. Is that true? So we're confident that dropout has not occurred here. This is an utterly vital assumption, because everything I'm about to do is... Are you about to put your hand up, Stephen, or you had half a hand up?
We would also note that peak height ratio in assessing that is probably a 29-30 plus a 30-30.
You could.
Fits the alleles where there are 4 plus a
You know, it does fit that. I just wonder if we could live with the other combination, the minor being 29-29. If I was doing this for real, I would sit down and try that combo. And you saw at the very start of my presentation the other day, I've got some data on heterozygote balance variances, and I've got that in software, and I would check if that one could get through. So it's a very valid point. So let's hold that point, and we'll do something with it in a minute. Okay, the LR. If these are the two people, that is what we'd see. If it's the victim and an unknown, and now we dramatically wipe out the person of interest. Which button do I push, Michael?
Raises here.
Okay, and now I use this end of the pen, and then we do that. Okay. Okay, I mean, you don't have to dramatically wipe out the person of interest in your casework, but it sort of makes a point that when you're going to HD, you want them out of your head. All right, and it does sort of help. Okay, the major is a 29-30. What can the true offender be? Now, for sure, it could be a 30-30, right? That's actually sort of the nicest fit, isn't it? All right, so the true offender could be a 30-30. And then we've got to ask whether we'd allow 29-30. I'm pretty sure I would. And now let's go 29-29. And I'm just not so sure about that one. I'd have to get the calculator out and check that, right? Could a 25%, what is it, 20% minor in my other balances allow me to have that? Now, I think Todd's done it, and he says no, right?
Do you want me to, let me do something really quick. Just
Yeah, well, I would be most appreciative.
If you look at, so if we're looking at a 29-29 with the 29-30. Oh, I'll do this in red. I think that's a highlighter. Oh, okay. So you've got a peak height of 4,700-ish for the 30 allele. Looking at our little curve of what's the smallest peak that 30 could be associated with for the victim of 29-30, it is 38. That's, what is it? 3201. And so that only leaves this amount for your minor component, because you still need to maintain this peak height balance for the 29-30. So you're, the lowest that's going to be able to go and leave something of that 29 is 3201. That only leaves 387 RFU for that 29 allele for the minor, or for the other components, the person of interest components RFUs. And then that's completely outside the mixture balance. So that's why we ruled out the 29-29 with the 29-30.
Appreciate that. So you can do different colors here as well. Okay.
Are you taking into account the additive effect of any possible stutter from 30? Yeah. Are you taking into account the additive effect of any stutter from the 30 when you're doing the calculation for the 29?
Yeah, you would, but it's still off. When we take that into account, typically try to add in the maximum amount of potential stutter at that locus.
That would make that combination even less likely.
Yes, it would. Yeah. So if I appreciate Todd doing that. If you've done that, you do this, right? I don't know how you do it in your notes, but you know I quite like a big dramatic X through it, and then you go excluded on the basis of heterozygote balance, and so forth. If anyone's interested, I'm just going to put these little numbers down here. It's 1, 1, and 0. What we've actually done is we've assigned things as possible or impossible, right? 1, 1, 0. The possibles are the ones and the impossibles are the noughts. Does anyone want to guess why this is called the binary approach? Okay. Now the other thing that may be of passing interest to you is that Mark Perlin's true allele wouldn't use ones and noughts there. That's our favourite, isn't it? Yeah, I'm going to try and erase you now. Is it that right button? And then I go back to picking a colour. I'm going to be black. Okay, so our favourite option is that 30-30, so he might have quite a nice high number there, right? And there's actually no reason for these to add up to 1. Please don't make me prove that. So he, rather than putting in ones and noughts, he put in actual numbers. And those numbers, you can, I'm sort of talking into getting them to print them out for you, but they should fit with your interpretation. Steve, you know how you said that's your preferred, but you might live with the next one and you don't like that last one, right? I'm trying to think how I can make true allele less of a black box. And I thought if he started spitting out these numbers, this might really help. So hopefully that gives you a really powerful impression right now on what the difference between the binary method and the continuous methods are, because you're at the absolute crux of where that changes. Okay, a little bit of a, I don't think I need erasure actually. So we're going to allow 2 possibilities in the denominator. So 30-30. There's something strangely sort of warm and nostalgic about using the product rule. All right. And look, that's pretty straightforward really, isn't it? I think you could almost have done that one in your head. I don't actually counsel you ever to do anything in your head, but yeah. All right. Am I back to my place?
Okay, so that I think would conclude then for our first example here. If anyone has any other questions, we're actually a little bit over for our break, so if we want to take a break now and be back in the room at around 10:25, and we'll then continue on to the next 50-50 mixture.